David DeGuzman inside the NBC4 Digital Center for the latest edition of the Digital Sports Roundtable. We have three voices, but in two different places as we get ready for the Cotton Bowl. We are joined by Joe Nugent, who is joining us from North Texas, and then here, right in the friendly confines of our digital studio, we have Whitney Harding. Hello to all of you. I'm going to start with Joe in Texas. Joe, talk to me about your travel there, where exactly you are, and I guess just the mindset as we get closer to kickoff for the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, we made the trip down here Wednesday morning. Pretty smooth, which is good. We beat the weather because that obviously is going to happen here in the next day or two. We'll see how bad the snow is going to be, but either way, it doesn't sound like it's going to be an issue for these teams. Ohio State obviously also traveling Wednesday. Much different deal than, years past. I mean, they played in this bowl game last year, and it was more of a quote-unquote bowl game experience. This year, it's practice Wednesday morning, fly here Wednesday, Thursday walk through, Friday play the game, Saturday go home. That's the deal. That's it. So yeah, it's definitely a different experience for Ohio State, but clearly this is a team that's going to come back to Texas in a far different situation than it was a year ago. This is a team with a ton of confidence, as it should have after those big wins against Tennessee and Oregon. And listen, it's going to be a pro-Texas crowd, but the Buckeyes want to, once again, get off to a fast start, take the crowd out of it, and head back home and get ready for one more.
Yeah, such a different mindset compared to a year ago, Whitney. Yeah. They're coming off this incredible performance in the Rose Bowl. I think one of the greatest performances in the first half that we've ever seen from an Ohio State team. Whitney, what do you think is the mindset going into this? Because we've been calling this a bit of a redemption tour. Here's another chance for redemption. Yeah. Last time they were in this building, it was not a memory that they want to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how Joe just kind of laid out the shortened or different kind of travel. It sounds like a business trip. It is a business trip. This is all business for this team. And it's not just the redemption tour for Ohio State. There are kind of within that redemption tours for Will Howard. I mean, you think about the Oregon game, the slide, well, overcame that. Now he wants this Texas team after that double, I think it was a double or single overtime loss that he suffered against them when he was at K-State last year. I know he felt like they should have won that game. Here's a chance for him to go in and prove himself there. And then, of course, the Buckeye Redemption Tour. Last year in the Cotton Bowl didn't go well. However, this is a building that has been kind to them in the past. So there's a lot of interesting storylines around the X's and O's for this big game that really is, like I said, it's a business trip.
Definitely a business trip, and this team is just so different compared to last year. I mean, they're just so much more together, I feel like, and of course, Will Howard leading the way on offense. I do want to get to a soundbite from Brandon Inniss talking about Will Howard and just, the leadership that he's been able to provide this team throughout this season. Let's hear from Brandon.
Coming here from a guy from Kansas State, a transfer in year one, you wouldn't expect that guy to be a leader like how he is. I mean, he's an unbelievable leader, and we all lean on him. He runs this whole team, and he knows that, and we'll go as far as he goes.
So this team obviously relying on him. It's so interesting because Will Howard goes into this game wanting to redeem himself. I'm going to go back to Joe Nugent back in Texas. Joe, AT&T Stadium is actually a stadium he's also very familiar with. And also the interesting thing, Texas, the one team that Will Howard in the Big 12 was not able to beat. What do you think is going through his mind as he enters this game?
I think he's trying to stay focused on what Ohio State has to do, what they want to do on offense. I think he's truly focused on execution. Will definitely, I mean, we've seen him play with a chip on his shoulder before. I mean, obviously the week before the Penn State game, he was like, yeah, I cannot wait to go back to Happy Valley. So certainly that is part of, what he's thinking about and what he's, I don't want to say focused on, but it's part of, his mindset going into this game. But I think his priority is it's about execution. That's what Ryan Day's been preaching. And, and that's kind of been the difference for them the last couple of weeks as well. Obviously, the offense has taken a massive step since that Michigan game. So I think it's kind of neat that Will comes back to a stadium that he's, familiar with, a place that he's had success in, won a Big 12 championship here. But I think ultimately for him and for this offense, the deal with this game is Ohio State just needs to continue to do what they did the last 2 weeks, which is not throw the ball to the other team and not give up any sacks. Stay on schedule. So that's what Will has to focus on. If Ohio State does that, it's going to be really, really hard for Texas to find a way to beat them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just play clean, right? I mean, I think when Will kind of really embraced that idea of I don't have to be a superstar. I don't have to have a slam dunk or a home run every single time I throw the ball. That is when this offense really started to click. And then those explosive plays did start to happen. And it's amazing how that works, right? But no, I mean, I think Joe nailed it. Just don't turn it over and just make things really hard for Texas. And it doesn't have to be this phenomenal thing because this team is really good. I mean, this Ohio State team is really good. Now Texas is as well. They wouldn't be here if they weren't. But I think that it's really been obvious when they play within themselves, when they play their style, we know what happens when they don't. They're very, very good.
It just feels like they're playing more free now. They have,
it's fun.
The ghosts from the Michigan game way past them now. They know that they're that close now to a national championship. But I feel like they're not putting the type of pressure that they were feeling going into the Michigan game. It's a different kind of pressure that allows them to feel freer, a lot more relaxed. And honestly, what's interesting to me going into this one, I'm going to be interested in the coin toss. If Ohio State ends up getting the ball first, and then, Will Howard is able to do his thing. It's going to be so interesting to see how they can maybe take control of this game. One more soundbite I want to point to, Donovan Jackson, who has an interesting storyline going into this one. So let's hear from Ryan Day and Luke Montgomery about that as we get closer to kickoff.
And he's increased his value exponentially, in my opinion, with the ability to play both positions. We'll need him to play that way in this game. They have tremendous pass rushers. They do a great job rushing the passer on the edge. They have some really good players.
I know that he wanted to be an All-American at guard and stuff like that, and he still got that this year. But, I mean, he's done a tremendous job going from guard to tackle, and not many people can do that.
Joe, I'm going to go right to you on this one because the offensive line has just been fascinating to watch this entire season. The twists and turns and how many, versions of this front five we've seen. But focusing on Donovan Jackson and expanding out to the front five going to this game. First off, obviously, it's a bit of a homecoming for him. And I think this is a front five that might be the key to winning a national title.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was actually about a half hour ago talking to somebody who writes for the Fort Worth paper here, somebody who covered Donovan in high school. And we were talking about him, and he's like, I know he played tackle in high school, but he's not a tackle at this level. It's really impressive what he's doing with this adjustment that, he had to make after the injury to Josh Simmons. So, I think part of this is that they've simplified some stuff on the offensive line, since they are down several different versions from where they started the season. Keeping it simple helps. I think the scheme has also helped as well. I think Chip Kelly deserves a lot of credit for what they've been able to do. The pass blocking has been really good. Really the only times that you've seen issues on the offensive line, I really think is actually running the ball, and they ran the ball pretty well these last two games. And yeah, for Donovan, it's really interesting because he came back to be the best guard in the country. And Ryan Day's talked about this, is that, he made a decision to not go to the NFL, to play here one more time, to really be a great guard. And then they had to move him. And he agreed to do it. And he put the team first, after making that personal commitment to the team in the offseason and trying to be the best guard in the country. He's now moved positions and really speaks to, who he is, and he's increasing his value, certainly in the eyes of NFL scouts. There aren't too many guys that can play guard like he does and tackle.
And now you have Luke Montgomery in there. And you just start to think about the possibilities. I wonder, we didn't see much of the run game in the Rose Bowl, Whitney, but what I'm interested to see is how this team is going to respond in an environment that, again, they're not used to. It's in many ways going to be an away game. How do you think the offensive line, Whitney, is going to kind of open up a lot of doors in this game on Friday?
Well, I mean, they've already been to a couple of the hardest places to play in the country when you think of Autzen and Penn State. And they did the silent count at Penn State, and it worked great. I don't think they're going to have to go that far because, yes, it might be a more pro-Texas crowd, but this is a stadium where the fans are not like on the field. It's very spread out. I mean, it is a full, like more so an arena, if you will. So it's not going to be this overwhelming noise. So I think that's going to be beneficial for them. I remember when Ryan Day first talked about the guard position and rotating guys, I remember thinking, this is nuts. This is insane. And it's worked amazingly well. I mean, Luke Montgomery talked this week about how it's nice when Austin and Tegra come off the field and he's like, okay, what did you see? What are they doing? And they communicate and they share. So then he goes out for his turn and he feels ready. He's gotten to see a little bit of it, which is good because he's had fewer snaps than some of these guys. So it's been a really interesting system that they're doing. And I really think that the more they do it, the better they're going to get. This will be the third game doing it. So you would think it's going to get even better and better. Now, of course, Texas, amazing defense, especially their front. But I do think that it's how the playoffs go, right? Each game, it's getting a little bit harder, different challenge. And that's what you have to do to win a national championship.
Before we go, I want to get a take from each of you. One big thing that you're looking for going into this game. Joe, I'll start with you. Just as you're going into it with kickoff approaching, what's one thing you're going to be looking out for?
I mean, because the starts have been so good the last two games, I'm curious to see if it happens again because at some point it becomes predictable and Texas is clearly going to prepare for that. The same way Texas has been really strong in the first half as well. So I'm curious if both these teams can get off to a good start like they have, or is Texas going to run into a team like they haven't really seen yet this year? Is Ohio State going to be the only team that gets off to a good start? So I think that's mostly what I'm interested in. That's probably because that's the start of the game. So it's a natural place to begin.
For me, it's make Texas one-dimensional. I think Arizona State laid out a lovely blueprint for what to do because if you can clog up that run game and you force them to have to throw, that gives the pass rushers a chance to really be effective. So for me, it's yes, make Texas one-dimensional. And I think that would be really key for Ohio State. And that would go along with a fast start as well. You can, get off offensively to a fast start, make Texas one-dimensional, you get the ball back, you're off and running.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this one. Oh, Joe, yes, please jump in.
Yeah, I mean, to Whitney's point, listen, it's a real narrow path for Texas to win this game, even if the running game is sort of working.
Right.
But if they shut that thing down, like they're going to be in a great spot because, they don't have the weapons that Ohio State has on offense. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing that as well because their running game was not good against Arizona State. It was good against Clemson. So it's been kind of hot and cold, inconsistent. And Ohio State's been consistent the last two games.
All good points. I'm looking out for a quick start as well, especially when you saw what they were able to do in the Rose Bowl. I'm just looking forward to – I'm tired of talking, and we just want to see how it all unfolds. I'm very anxious to get to Friday. So, Joe Nugent and Whitney Harding, thank you so much for the time. Of course, we will have all the coverage you need throughout the week on air and online here on NBC4i.com. Until then, we will see you next time on the NBC4 Sports Digital Roundtable.